The mists rose from the canals of Bravos, like pale ghosts, curling around the gray steps of the house of black and white, as if yearning for secrets, spoken only in silence. In the pre-dawn hush, the temple's doors parted for Arya Stark, grown tall and sinewed by years of shedding faces and names. She wore no mask tonight. Her own features, sharp lines cut by northern frost, the winter wolf's gray eyes framed by midnight hair, were the truest disguise of all, for no living soul in Bravos believed the girl they once called Cat of the Canals still drew breath. Moonlight silvered the steel of needle where it lay across her back. But she walked with empty hands, palms upturned in the faceless men's gesture of service. Yet a private fire banked beneath her calm. She had come not for absolution but for blessing, for sanction, for war. Inside the cavernous nave, candles flickered beside pillars of mottled stone. Pale upon dark, dark upon pale, the living marble of a creed older than kingdoms. Faces stared from every angle, some serene, some tormented, each fixed forever at the moment before peace. They watched Arya glide between pools of lamplight to the dais where the kindly man had waited since sunset. He bore the guise of a gaunt bravo with milk-white hair, though only the gods knew which face truly lay beneath. His eyes, ageless and pitiless, followed her approach. She knelt on the tessellated floor that smelled of wax and secrets. "I have learned all you would teach me," she said, voice a low ripple that disturbed the hush. "I have paid the price of every name but one." The kindly man inclined his head. "No one has no name to keep. Yet you have a name still. Why do you cling to it, child?" "Ah, because Westeros does not know the gift," Arya answered. "Because my home bleeds, and none cut the rot from its heart. My name is the blade they will heed." A murmur stirred the shadows like distant surf, other priests and servants listening unseen. The kindly man rose, robes whispering against the flagstones, and placed a hand upon her brow. "We give the gift, not kingdoms. Power is illusion." "So is every face," she countered. "Yet wear enough illusions, and you may topple empires. Let me lead our brothers and sisters across the narrow sea. Let me show a realm drowned in blood that death itself has come ashore." "I'm not sure." For breathless moments, the silence deepened, candles guttering as though the room inhaled. At length the priest's lips curved in something not wholly smile, not wholly sorrow. "Many have begged the many-faced god for conquest," he murmured, "and found only their own undoing. Will you claim you are different?" Arya met his gaze without trembling. "I claim only purpose. The stranger rides beside the wolf. Westeros forged me. I will remake it in coin fairer than gold. No man, no queen, no king will bar the door to mercy when my footsteps sound upon their halls." "Denderwan, Insti." A single nod granted her pilgrimage. From the alcove stepped 5 masters, silent, hooded, each carrying an offering. One offered her a purse of Bravosi gold, payment for passage. Another, a roll of parchment bearing secret names worth more than crowns. The third placed in her hands a crystal vial filled with a syrupy midnight fluid, basilisk blood tempered with the tears of Lys, a draught that killed with a kiss. The fourth draped her shoulders with a cloak of unremarkable gray, woven from thread that drank the light. The fifth, smaller than the rest, extended a wax tablet etched with the dolphin sigil of a Pentoshi captain loyal by fear alone. It was salvation and blackmail all at once, coin of the order. When the gifts were bestowed, the kindly man spoke a benediction older than Valyria. "Go with the many-faced god, Arya Stark. A girl will lead faces yet unseen. She will shepherd them across darkness and deliver them into darker light. But remember, every gift given must be paid for in flesh. When the day comes that price is asked of you, do not tremble." "MC? I will pay," she promised, sliding needle from its sheath and laying the sword at his feet in token of fealty. It glimmered like moonlit ice. Then she rose, turned, and walked out beneath the carved archway. The doors thundered close behind her as though sealing a tomb. It took 6 days to gather them. 70 faceless men and women, each sworn to shadow, each disguised as something the world would never fear. They sailed from Bravos aboard the Sea Swan, a wine galley outwardly laden with casks bound for Gulltown. In truth, the casks hid vaults of ashwood coffins where the priests lay in trance, breathing shallow draughts of dream wine, their pulses thinning to whispers, so they might endure the voyage unseen. Only Arya and a half-dozen lieutenants walked the decks above, playing their roles with flawless ease. Merchant's daughter, weathered quartermaster, mute pilot, drunken chaplain. The crew, ignorant of their cargo, thought only of silver waiting in Westeros. Storms lashed them halfway across the narrow sea, hurling green waves over rail and ripping a mast free on the third night. Arya worked shoulder to shoulder with salty deckhands, rope burn flaming across her palms, salt stinging her eyes while thunder crashed overhead. She tasted home in the brine, memories of Winterfell's godswood and the icy spray along the wall. Come morning the wind eased, and there on the bleeding horizon rose the purple banners of dawn over Westeros. Her heart hammered. She had been so many women. Blind beggar, cat of canals, silent servant, and yet never ceased to be the wolf of the north. They made landfall at Saltpans, the docks still charred ruins from the hound's long-ago rampage, though fisherfolk had rebuilt shanties of rough timber and hope. The Sea Swan afloated pirated casks of red arbor and sweet Myrish fire, hauling them to market stalls where merchants sniffed and bargained. Arya's lieutenants collected whispers as deftly as they collected coin. Talk of Cersei's tightening fist in King's Landing, of a dragon queen across the sea gathering sails and sellswords, of the faith militant swelling under sparrow banners. Yet what pricked Arya most was rumor of a lone dire wolf south of Moat Cailin, great as a horse, prowling with a ghost pack. Nymeria, daughter not, her own soul made flesh, untamed. Before dawn, the faceless men scattered like seeds to every wind. One walked north dressed as a tinker's boy. Another rode west beneath Septon's robes. A third donned golden lion mail to infiltrate the Lannister host. They carried names stitched behind their eyes, marks to harvest on journeys hushed and lethal. All would converge when Arya called. She herself took the King's Road under a weathered hood, needle at her back, the cloak of unremarkable gray drinking the sun. Though spring greened the fields, the land felt hollow, scraped raw by years of war. Smoldering farmsteads lay abandoned. Parchment proclamations flapped mutely on wayposts. Edicts of Queen Regent Cersei, promising death for traitors, rebels, and sparrows alike. Yet in tavern corners, miners and gamekeepers spoke of the night they called the Burning Star. St. Jaime come to life, freeing innocent prisoners along Riverland's roads. Aye, Jaime. Better one-handed than Cersei's lash. Arya tucked that morsel deep. Every rumor was thread, and a girl was weaving a shroud for her kingdom. At Maidenpool, she slipped aboard a salt trader bound for White Harbor, by way of Gulltown, exchanging coin and a kiss, laced with basilisk blood, to silence the captain forever. By the time the vessel's mates found their master sprawled in his cabin, Arya was rowing ashore in the dead of night. Gulltown's chalk cliffs loomed like fangs. The moon traced silhouettes of gulls upon black water. She climbed secret stairways carved when the Arryns first gazed down upon the narrow sea, emerging within the outer ward of the gates of the moon. A half-mask of silver hid her face, the fashion of some dandy's masquerade, but none questioned the foxglove pin at her collar, the sigil of Petyr Baelish, who now styled himself Lord Protector in the Vale. She walked among guards asleep on their spears. In the rookery, she found Maester Coleman hunched over ravens. A slip of parchment sealed with Moon on the Falcon nestled among his scrolls. Her gloved hand removed it without a sound. Low torches painted her shadow across the stone. Coleman never stirred. No blood spilled there. This night death walked softly, on velvet paws. The paper carried Sansa's cipher, inked in lemon juice to bloom over flame. I hold the Erie's heart, but am caged by whispers. The boy lord is puppet to a man whose smile is a noose. I need the north. I need my sister. Arya folded the note into her sleeve with a breath that shook like autumn leaves. Sansa lived and plotted. That was enough. She departed the vale as unseen as she'd entered, riding a shaggy mountain garron that knew the maze of goat tracks beneath the giant's lance. 3 days later, beneath the crumbed towers of the bloody gate, a hooded rider melted into night, leaving only hoofprints and dust. The north welcomed her with hard rain and muddy roads that swallowed horses to the hock. Rumors here sounded different. Ruder accents, gruffer fears. Men spoke of wildlings south of the wall, of a bastard named Snow crowned king of the north after battle, with Bolton flares at Winterfell. They spoke of white walkers turned to mist by dragonglass blades, though some swore those tales were lies of cravens. Others whispered of Lord Manderley secretly raising fleets in the Bight for a dragon bride soon to claim her crown. Arya's heart surged each time Jon's name brushed her ears. She longed to gallop through the Wolfswood and burst through Winterfell's gates, throwing herself into his arms, but a knife-sharp instinct held her. The wolf pack hunts best when hidden. She was not only Stark of Winterfell, but Ghost of Bravos, unseen and deadly. Jon would see her when the killing was done. At the weather-beaten Inn of the Flayed Man, a name hastily painted over with a wolf by new proprietors, Arya met her first lieutenant again. He wore the face of a hedge knight, with pock scars upon cheeks and an alehouse belly, yet when their eyes met across a smoky common room, she recognized the soul behind the mask. He inclined his flagon as though greeting a stranger. She tossed him a coin beneath the bench. Half a Bravosi moon signaled that the harvest had begun. Throughout White Harbor, Deepwood Mott, Barrowton, the faceless men gathered. Some arrived in plain sight, some as whispers you felt only once the candle guttered. They carried trophies, signet rings cut from Frey fingers, writs of debt that would cripple Iron Bank creditors, maps of secret tunnels beneath the dragon pit. Each laid his offering at Arya's feet in the bleak cellar of a longhouse outside Wintertown. There, by the glow of a single tallow lamp, she charted the axis of quiet wars to come. King's Landing first, she said, voice soft as snow on stone. We peel away Cersei's claws, finger by finger. When the lioness roars, the realm will look north for shelter, and we will be there, masks discarded. A wolf's face is mercy compared to what wears the crown now. Naubur, a woman with ghost-white hair, once a Lysine courtesan, now master of poisons, unrolled a parchment inked with warehouse manifests. Ships daily from Old Town bring wildfire casks for the capital's alchemists. One spark, and the city lights the night like summer storms. Arya shook her head. We are scalpels, not torches. No innocence will burn. We take the head, the heart, the hand upon the whip. The rest may heal. Anon. Another priest, leathery, stooped, clicked his tongue. And the Dragon Queen? Word says her sails have left Meereen on autumn winds. In Dragonfire, there is rebirth, Arya replied. Let her break the wheel. We will slip between its spokes where it falters. At dawn the cellar emptied. Each faceless killer carried a new name, a new path. Some would ride with Manderley to Sea Dragon Point. Others would cross the neck as silent Septus, bound for King's Landing. Arya remained only long enough to write a single letter in cipher and seal it with hardened pine resin. She gave it to the Hydak Knight lieutenant. To Lady Sansa, Arya. When the falcon screams, free the wolf. Then she donned the face of a sellsword from the Stormlands, short-cropped beard, broken nose, and rode south on a piebald mare, leaving the scent of pine sap and home behind. King's Landing crouched on its promontory like a battered helm, red walls scabbed with patches where wildfire had licked them 2 wars ago. The stench of tanneries mingled with sour wine, and the breath of countless small folk jostling through flea-bottom's mazes. Markets buzzed beneath banners crimson and gold. House Lannister still trumpeted its reign, though coffers rang hollow after years of siege and bribes. Cersei sat the Iron Throne crowned by blades, but each blade cut her as well. High Septon sermons, Iron Bank debts, Euron Greyjoy's restless ambition. In every alley, sparrow preachers railed against queen and crown alike, and sparrow thugs dragged gold cloaks into alley corners where the dark swallowed screams. Arya stepped among them wearing rags and boils, her gait that of a washerwoman bow-legged by years at the tub. No gaze lingered upon her. She drifted between sept and brothel, tannery and butcher, collecting rumor like field mice. Each night she scratched names upon a hidden slate. Sir Mandans of the Red Keep Guard, Lord Giles appointed Master of Coin, Maester Qyburn rumored to dabble in necromancy below the dungeons. Faces to be stolen. In the bowels of the Guildhall of Alchemists, she found a narrow drain that fed from the vaults beneath the throne room to the black water. Through slime and darkness she crawled, breathing past the rot of centuries, until pale green luminescence kissed the tunnel walls, wildfire casks stacked like eggs of some monstrous serpent. One spark would birth apocalypse. Arya marked their tally silently. The realm had played with fire too often. She would not grant Cersei a conflagration's martyrdom. By day she sold candles door to door in the Street of Silk. By dusk she joined potboys and scullions in taverns, their talk loose with ale and ennui. Every whispered insult of the queen became a thread in her tapestry of revolt. When at last the threads wove tight, she found a quiet garret above a tanner's shop and lit a single black candle, the sign her lieutenants awaited. Within 2 days 9 strangers arrived in the city. A wanted spice merchant from Volantis, a septa of the Great Shepherd, 3 mute bakers, a sellsword with Dothraki braids bound in bronze, a barrel maker missing 2 fingers, the master of poisons disguised as a midwife. They gathered in the garret at moonrise, shedding cloaks that smelled of dust and daisies, until only truth bared itself, death in many faces. Arya laid the queen's city map upon a rough table. 3 nights hence, when bells toll for the Feast of the Maiden, we bleed the Lion's Court. Qyburn first. His black arts feed the mountain. Then Sir Gregor, head cut from the snake. When the mountain falls, the Red Keep quakes. The queen will flee to Maegor's Holdfast. There sparrow blades already wait. She pointed to corridors and sally ports inked with strict precision. No child dies this night, only those who have killed in Cersei's name. The spice merchant folded arms, muscle-corded by far warmer seas. What of the King's Guard? 7 white wolves with teeth. Meganumdor. 7 men with hearts, Arya replied. Hearts stopped beating. A hush settled as final as freshly turned earth. They raised cups of watered wine and toast, not to victory, but to the stranger who grants release. The midwife whispered a prayer in Valyrian, a lullaby for corpses unborn. The Feast of the Maiden dawned bright and searing. Street performers juggled clusters of woven rushes. Acrobats danced upon silk tightropes draped between ratty wooden poles. Cersei Lannister, resplendent in a gown of crimson silk, sewn with golden roses, presided from the Red Keep's stone balcony, flanked by the King's Guard in polished silver. The mountain loomed behind her, silent as winter's tomb, white cloak falling over black steel armor. Arya moved unseen through the milling throng disguised as a pox-scarred septa. She dipped bread in bowls of lentil stew for beggar children, blessing them with watery smiles. Across the courtyard the mute bakers handed out sweet rolls laced with shade-offeth evening. 1 swallow brought bliss, 2 brought dreamless sleep. Guard posts at the gates fell quiet as gold cloaks slumped against spears, drooling. Inside the keep, the hill's veins pulsed with secret motion. The midwife, her belly padded to feign pregnancy, waddled into Qyburn's laboratory bearing a crate of pickled dwarf fetuses, a gift for his curiosities. When the door closed, her scalpel flashed. Qyburn's shriek lasted only as long as breath remained in lungs slit open like wet parchment. Steel rang in the hall above. The King's Guard, Sir Meryn, Sir Osney, Sir Lancel, staggered, clutching throats as alvularia toxin seeped through seams of gilded plate. 1 collapsed, 2 hacked froth. The sellsword in Dothraki braids finished them with quiet thrusts. Outside bells tolled. Cersei turned to speak some cutting remark to a courtier, but the words died when the mountain pitched forward with a wet crunch. The spice merchant stood behind him, dagger driven up beneath visor into the soft gray of the brain. Mountain's body hit stone like a toppled tower. Courtiers screamed. Cersei stumbled back, skirts tangling in gilt sandals. Guards dashed to her side, too late. Arya emerged from the parted crowd in her washerwoman rags. She moved like a shadow, detached from earth, slipping through gaps no eye marked. At the last step of the balcony stair, she drew needle. Sunlight-kissed castle, forged steel, as it carved a thin red smile across the queen's pale throat. Cersei's eyes widened, green jewels fracturing into shards of disbelief. Blood spilled over rubies at her collar. Yet, Cersei Lannister did not fall alone. Arya caught her by jeweled shoulders, lowering her gently beside the dead mountain. "The North remembers," she whispered, lips brushing the queen's ear. "Tell father I avenged him." But Cersei was already gone. The courtyard erupted in chaos. Goldcloaks who remained awake raised horns. Sparrows shrieked prayers. Small folk trampled one another for the gates. Above it all, the bells thundered, each peal a funeral knell for an age of lions. Arya stepped over spreading blood and dropped her washerwoman mask. Faces parted, horrified, as she revealed her wolf's eyes. "Enough!" Her voice sliced through the din sharper than steel. "The lioness is dead. The throne will burn unless we mend the land. Go home. Hold your children. The stranger has taken his due." Some spat, some wept, but most fled. When Goldcloaks surged, they found only corpses and discarded rags. The faceless men were dust upon the wind. News traveled swifter than ravens, carried by rumor's wings. In Old Town, archmaesters paused over musty tomes, quills trembling. A queen killed by ghost assassins. In Sunspear, Princess Arya tasted peach juice, suddenly bitter with foreboding. In Dragonstone, Daenerys Stormborn stood upon the battlements as black sails filled the bay, her dragons circling overhead, and knew the moment to strike was now. And in Winterfell, Jon Snow received the first raven, even as a stranger in gray hung back among the stables, hood shadowing her face. He sat beneath the weirwood's red leaves as he read the broken wax of the royal seal. Sansa knelt beside him, hair auburn flame against winter bark. When Jon lifted his gaze, Arya stood at the edge of the godswood, cloak slipping from shoulders to reveal the stark whites and blacks of house, stark sigil sewn across leather. Needle gleamed at her hip. For a heartbeat the world held its breath. Then they moved, wolf to wolf, brother to sister, closing the distance of years in a single stride. He crushed her to him, shaking, scenting the sea and assassin's oils on her hair. "Arya," he breathed as though afraid she might vanish. "I'm here, Jon," she answered. "And I am not alone." Around the godswood's perimeter shadows rippled, figures stepping forth, the faceless men, stripped now of masks, kneeling before the king in the north. Their gazes held neither reverence nor fear, only acceptance of debt repaid. Names had been paid for in flesh. Jon's face hardened with wary awe. "What would you have me do with killers?" "Let them finish what they began," Arya said, squeezing his calloused hand. "Westeros is wounded. We will cut away the infection so the realm may heal. A dragon queen comes bearing fire. The north brings ice. Between them, life may bloom or perish. We must guide the storm." Sansa's eyes shone, half pride, half dread. "And the throne?" "Thrones are just chairs," Arya replied, a ghost of childhood mischief in her smile. "Wood and iron. Let the world break them. We build something new." Snowflakes drifted from a pale sky, melting upon the warm bark of the heart tree, upon Jon's black curls, upon Arya's scars. They mixed with the faint copper scent of blood still clinging to her gloves, washed it clean. In that moment, the weirwood's face seemed almost to smile. Far to the south, black sails unfurled off Dragonstone, as Daenerys Targaryen's fleet prepared to cross Blackwater Bay. Her unsullied form spear-tip ranks upon the shore, war drums echoing across dread, calm water. Above, Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion wheeled impatiently, fiery throats rumbling. The queen's silver hair whipped in sea wind as Tyrion Lannister approached with narrowed eyes. In his hand he held the blood-stained crown ripped from his sister's corpse, smuggled out by Varys' little birds. "The lioness has fallen," he told Daenerys, "struck down by ghosts. King's Landing is ripe for the taking." "Nets. Ghosts." She tilted her head. "You mean assassins." He nodded. "A league of faces, and a she-wolf at their head, or so the whispers claim." Then we shall learn if wolves and dragons may hunt the same prey, the queen replied, mounting Drogon's ridged neck. Fly the banners. We sail on the tide. Across Blackwater Bay, the city walls lay patched and crumbling. Banners torn, the Iron Throne vacant but for the smear of dried blood. Small folk cowered in cellars, waiting to see what shape the next storm would take. In the throne room's echoing vault, dust motes swirled in lances of dying light, settling upon jagged blades forged of conquest. No queen sat the knife crown now. No king schemed behind velvet drapes. Only silence ruled, fragile as spun glass. Yet beyond the city's battered gates, beyond the green reach of the Kingswood and the silver curve of the Blackwater, riders advanced from the north beneath direwolf banners, and ships approached from the east bearing dragons on scarlet sails. Between them walked shadows wearing every face, and behind each shadow stretched a long, dark road of debts paid and yet owing. Westeros trembled on the cusp of rebirth or ruin. In midnight hours, mothers lulled babes to sleep with tales of the wolf girl who wore death's smile, who slew a queen with a needle of ice and a heart of wildfire. Children dreamed of faceless saviors dancing through moonlit streets. They did not know if she was monster or guardian angel, but they whispered her name like prayer. Arya Stark, the many-faced wolf. And in a small chamber within the Red Keep, beneath a broken window that looked toward a sky bruised purple with dragon smoke, a ragged sparrow knelt before a simple wooden altar. He prayed neither to the Seven nor to the Red God, but to the stranger who wears every face. Send us your mercy, he begged, voice raw of idea. Send us your wolf. Outside, unseen by any but the gulls, the first snowflake of winter drifted over King's Landing, melting upon stone still warm from the sun. Above, the bells lay silent. But far away, in woods where direwolves roamed under fading stars, a howl rose. Long, mournful, exultant. It carried on the wind like promise. Winter had come, and with it, the faceless men. Storm clouds marched over the bight in steel-gray phalanxes, while the masts of Lord Manderley's new fleet carved black runes against a bruised sky. At dawn Jon stood on the quarterdeck of the Winter's Grace, hair snapping in the salt wind, cloak a tattered banner of charcoal wool. Direwolf sails bellied above him, their white sigils snarling across a sea the color of old pewter. Beside him Arya rested an elbow on the rail, as though she had been born a sea captain. Only the faint tension in her shoulders betrayed how fiercely she measured every horizon. The faceless lieutenants moved like wraiths through the crew, unheard yet somehow everywhere, tying down rigging before a storm hit, tightening straps on barrels of pickled cod, testing every plank for rot. Men swore the ship trimmed itself when none looked. Jon let silence stretch until it shaped itself into trust. The fleet is ready, he said at last. White Harbor's shipwrights worked half a year. We've names for only half the hulls. We'll baptize the rest in fire soon enough. Arya's gaze never faltered from the distant smudge that was the littoral of Cape Wrath. Daenerys' armada sails south of Dragonstone this morning if the wind stays true. They'll reach Blackwater Bay within 3 days. We dock in 4. I mean to be inside those walls before Drogon's shadow touches them. Menmanip. If the Queen sees northern banners outside the gates while dragonfire roars overhead, she may think we come to take what's hers. She will see what we let her see. Dragons respect strength, not supplication. Jon tried to picture the girl had once chased through Winterfell wearing mud-stained breeches, now weighing alliances with dragon queens. The woman beside him had learned how to hide her beating heart behind layers of ice. Yet when she caught him studying her, a smile flickered. Swift, shy, startlingly familiar. It melted years away. You still scrunch your brow the same when you fret, she teased. And you still tilt your head like a wolf pup when you scent a hunt. A gust carried brine across the deck. The wolves on Jon's shields glittered with spray. Whatever happens when we reach King's Landing, he said, this cannot become another war of the 5 kings. Too many dead already. Then we'll end it before the first sword leaves its scabbard. She tapped the hilt of needle. Sometimes one thrust saves 10,000. A horn on the forecastle sounded, low and mournful. White-greened waves bobbed with shapes. Nymeria's pack, 100 lank gray hulks swimming alongside the fleet, silent as leviathans. John's pulse stuttered. You brought them? They brought themselves, Arya answered softly. They followed the stranger's scent after salt pans. Let any corsair ponder boarding while those eyes watch. She left him at the rail to descend toward the orlop, where faceless captains unrolled charts, inked in braids of blood and shadow. John stayed above, scanning the horizon. The wolves' ridged backs split the surface off starboard before diving like shadows into deeper gloom. The world felt on the cusp of something beyond the cadence of crowns, skin prickling with those moments when the gods turn their heads to listen. Far to the south, the sky above King's Landing glimmered unhealthy green each night, where wildfire still leached fumes from hidden stores, but daylight revealed a garrison unraveling. Qyburn's body discovered headless, the mountain toppled like a felled statue, half the gold cloaks asleep forever from a poison they never tasted. Rumors outpaced ravens. Markets reopened under sparrow banners. Septons preached reconciliation while pickpockets and whores returned to corners they had fled at first screams. No one admitted to seeing the queen die. No one claimed to know where the royal council had crawled. Yet every merchant speaking too loud about the lioness's agonies woke next day with lips sewn shut. Fear changed shape but never vanished. Within the Red Keep, Grand Maester Pacel's old solar became council chamber and charnel house both. Taco Nestoris of the Iron Bank paced among toppled chairs, ledger fingers drumming impatience, while lords of the Reach and Stormlands bickered over who must foot the cost of guarding a throne no one dared to claim. Ser Talatarle demanded grain levies to feed refugees. Lord Estremont insisted the fleet remain moored for Euron's inevitable return. Each argument dissolved when a single name floated through candle smoke. Daenerys died. The Dragon Queen approached, and not one among them doubted what her answer to debt collectors would be. In that choking indecision, various little birds whispered a harsher truth: that the gates were compromised. Sewer grates once sealed by Qyburn's black cells now lay pried open. Watch rotation rosters vanished from armories. Some nights a bell would toll by itself, though no rope moved, and next morning a sergeant turned up throat-slit in a privy. Deep in the cellars, Sir Jaime Lannister dragged stump of sword arm across clammy forehead. He had returned 2 days after Cersei's death, slipping through chaos with nothing but Brienne of Tarth's cloak to hide his lineage. Brienne herself flanked him now, one hand on Oathkeeper. "You shouldn't linger," she said, her voice filling vaulted gloom like a smith's hammer. "If the wolves truly struck your sister, stark vengeance may soon extend to you." "Not wolves," Jaime murmured, staring at the slab where Qyburn's body had lain. Blades of air and silence. Cersei's death felt inevitable. The words tasted like acid. He remembered golden hair splayed in his mailed fist once, remembered telling Tyrion he would send his regards. Now there were no regards left, only ashes swirling in halls colder than Casterly Rock's crypts. Brienne angled her torch. "We must reach the throne room before Daenerys lands. Someone needs to speak for what remains of the realm. Not me. I have no hand left to raise." He laughed, brittle. "Maybe the Dragon Queen will melt that wretched chair and be done with it." A scrape sounded in the corridor beyond. Soft, deliberate. Brienne swept sword free, torch spitting sparks. Shadows pooled like ink until a lean girl stepped into the flicker, cloak gray, eyes gray, smile ghostly. She studied Jaime a heartbeat before turning to Brienne. "Sir Jaime Lannister owes debts," she said, "but he also kept a vow on the road north. The many-faced god remembers." Brienne frowned, blade steady. "Who are you?" "No one," Arya answered. And Arya Stark. Recognition widened Brienne's eyes. "Lady Arya." She lowered Oathkeeper at once. The torch's flame haloed her honorable confusion. Jaime's breath caught. "You," he whispered. "The courtyard. The sword in my sister's." Arya nodded, unflinching. "The crown owed a name. You murdered the queen." His voice held no anger, only blank fatigue. "She murdered herself long ago." She shifted, letting torchlight dance over needle. "Now listen. Within 2 days, Damaris will demand surrender. If gates open peacefully, she spares the small folk. If not, dragonfire. I need you to ensure her entry is unopposed." Brienne intervened. "We serve the living, not flames." "Then help me. I've friends among the Unsullied. When they march through the mud gate tomorrow night, they'll expect my signal. Cut the portcullis chain, 6 deaths at most, and the city lives." But Jaime stared at the stub of his right wrist. Strange penance, opening gates to wolves and dragons both. Better a dragon's mercy than Euron's flays, or Tycho's ledgers. Arya's gaze swung to Brienne. "Your honor can save 10,000. Brienne swallowed. Oathkeeper's orange reflection shimmered in her eyes. "Tell me what must be done." While conspiracies coiled through dungeons, Sansa's reply arrived on silent wings north of the Trident. The Hyde Knight lieutenant found Arya atop the battlements of Harrenhal, ruins reclaimed by weeds and quick deaths, but now repurposed as forward mustering point for the Faceless host. He handed her the Raven's note, blank at first glance, until candle heat teased lemon ink into view. The lines read like heartbeats. "Aaron moves only when Littlefinger tugs, but I have cut the strings. He lingers yet in the eyrie, unknowing the snare. Give me 1 moon's turn. Send me a shadow to close his throat, and Robin will sign any charter we place before him. When the Vale's knights join the north, no force in Westeros will dare test what we build." Arya's smile was knife-thin. For years she'd whispered names at night. Petyr Baelish was one she had nearly let slip. Her sister would claim that justice herself. A circle closed. She tucked the parchment into belt pouch, then surveyed the courtyard where Faceless recruits sparred with lacquer-bladed short sword. They drilled in silence. No commander barked orders, no steel clanged, yet movements locked with eerie unity. Beside them, northern levies practiced shield walls, their shouts raw but fervent. Dreadfort men fought shoulder to shoulder with Karstark and Mormont bannermen now. Arya noted scars on a few where Bolton-flayed sigils once adorned flesh. When you erase a face, sometimes what grows back is loyalty. Gendry Baratheon, Lord of Storms and by queenly proclamation but still blacksmith's heart, wiped soot from brow as he hammered chainmail for unknown shoulders. He spotted Arya watching and flashed a grin. She felt heat bloom under tunic and turned away before memory softened her edges. The many-faced god demanded a price. She wondered if it would be him. Night fell on Blackwater Bay when the unsullied vanguard rode to shore. Thousands of pale shields glimmered in torchlight, their spears bristling like sea urchin spines as they formed disciplined ranks. Grey Worm's face revealed nothing while he studied ramparts. Catapults remained unmanned above Mud Gate, arrow slits dark. Victory sometimes smelled wrong. Behind him, Tyrion Lannister tugged boots from sand. If Cersei were alive, we'd already be drowning in wildfire. Grey Worm spoke quietly. "The Dragon Queen will come only when city open. We march when wolf signal appears." "Then?" Tyrion rubbed scars where chains had once encircled wrists. The moon's halo on the water reminded him of wildfires ring around Blackwater years before. But this time he fought to spare King's Landing, not to keep it. Let's hope the Wolfkeepers know their part. On the parapet above, Brienne winched the portcullis mechanism 2 turns before iron teeth locked again. At her heel, Jaime pressed cloak to fresh slash along ribs. A gold cloak spear had glanced him, while they silenced tower guards. Blood pattered cobbles in quiet rhythm. Brienne hissed. "You're losing too much." "I'm losing a kingdom that never thanked me," he rasped. "Let me bleed a bit." Brienne choked a laugh before pulling rope. Sparks showered from pulley gears. Below, unsullied torches flared once in answer, then snuffed out. All but one. It waved, bright and sure. The winch groaned, chains rattled. The portcullis crept upward a finger's width, then a hand's breadth. Through that growing maw poured 20 gray-cloaked figures, stepping over corpses like water over stones. They vanished into warrens of flea-bottom with blades ready for posts still held by cell sails. Jaime watched them go, a chill centering in spine. Wolves wore many faces indeed. When the gate lifted fully, the Unsullied marched without battle cry. A tide of spears flowed across the cobbles, splitting around terrified small folk who woke to find silent soldiers guiding them indoors, pressing coins into palms to keep shutters barred. War arrived more gently than any tax collector ever had. Dawn streaked the sky rose pale as Drogon's silhouette soared above the city. Hearth fires dimmed before his passing. Animals hushed. Rhaegal and Viserion banked behind, wings slashing clouds like scythes. Daenerys rode strapped to Drogon's back in black scale armor, silver hair braided tight. When she reined the beast over the ruined sept, she saw Unsullied holding ramparts, gray banners rippling beside direwolf pennons. No Lannister crimson. No flames. Only a hush deeper than prayer. Tyrion approached on foot, cloak tossed over shoulder. "Your Grace," he called. It seems a queen's work was finished before she set foot ashore. Daenerys' smile held caution and relief. "And whose work is that?" "Stark's, by the looks of it. They sent you a gift, a city unburned." She dismounted, as Drogon crouched like living onyx. "They honor their oath to the realm even before we meet. I must answer in kind." Within an hour, Grey Worm escorted her through the Red Keep to a still bloody throne room. Daggers of light cut from shattered windows, dust floated among throne blades. Daenerys paused before the Iron Throne, its obsidian steps sticky with dried gore. Cersei's crown lay beside a cracked boot heel. She reached, but did not lift the crown. Instead, she turned at the sound of boot steps. Jon Snow entered flanked by Arya and a pair of northern guards. He wore boiled leather and rough spun rather than plate. Long claw rested at hip. He bowed his head. "Your Grace." Daenerys studied the half-brother she'd never met, the nephew she did not know. Ravens told her of another claimant, yet crownless. His eyes carried winter dawns and dead brothers, but no hunger for chairs. "I see no crown on you, Jon Snow," she said. "Are you still king in the north?" "A king who burns his people for a seat rules nothing," he answered. "The north seeks peace. If you intend likewise, you have no enemy here." Arya stepped forward. Her gray cloak seemed almost to vanish into shadows. "We gave your army safe entry. The small folk live because we spared them. What will you give in return?" Dany raised a brow. "And you are the shadow the city now fears?" "I am the wolf at its throat," Arya said evenly. "Yet a wolf knows mercy." Daenerys' gaze flicked to the bloody steps, then beyond to a jagged gap where wildfire stain marred stone. "Long ago, I swore to break the wheel. Today, I find it already buckling. Help me shatter it cleanly, and the north can keep its ways. No tithes, no forced kneelings. Stand beside me, not beneath me." "Nay." Tyrion coughed softly. "Spoken like a queen who remembers dragons and wolves, hunted together once." Before more oaths exchanged, Grey Worm announced 2 prisoners dragged from cellars. Tycho Nestoris and Euron Greyjoy's first mate captured attempting to set beacon fires. Euron himself yet unaccounted. Daenerys ordered Tycho unharmed, but placed in a wooden cell with ledger tables. "You will find me coin once this realm unites." The mate she gave to the Unsullied for questioning. Fear replaced debate, for a time. That evening Arya walked parapets overlooking the Blackwater. Smoke from 1,000 hearths mingled with dragon char from Drogon's leisurely passes. She leaned arms on stone still warm from sunset, as though her heart could find equal warmth. Steps approached. Jon stood a moment before speaking. "She means peace, I think. A queen's peace lasts until someone hungrier rises. Breaking wheels only forges sharper spokes." "And Inderasa, you distrust her." "I distrust crowns. But I feel she sees people, not numbers." Jon breathed briny air. "So what now, little sister? Our names ring like prophecy through streets. Some call you savior, others butcher." "I'm neither," she said. "I'm tired." He touched her shoulder. "Then rest. Let others plan tomorrow." She nodded, but sleep evaded. Dreams churned with faces, everyone she'd worn, everyone she'd taken. They lined corridors of memory like candles snuffed one by one. In the darkest corner stood the kindly man, eyes pits of quiet flame. He whispered, "The gift is never free. You owe a face you love." Arya woke in sweat, dawn's first blue creeping. She rose and crossed still corridors to the rookery, where ravens cooed behind lattices. She penned a single line on parchment, name claimed. "Dead, due die. Make ready." She signed only with a drawn needle and sent the bird east across the narrow sea to Bravos. 3 weeks later, a great council convened in the Dragon Pit's broken amphitheater. Representatives of every region gathered, Sansa for the north, Arya flanking, Gendry for the Stormlands, Tyrion for Westerlands by thin claim, Samwell Tarly wearing black for the Watch, Yara Greyjoy limping but proud, Prince Trystane Martell for Dorne, Davos for the Reach until a Tyrell heir be found. Vale Knights arrived beneath moon and falcon banners, led by a pale, trembling Robin Arryn, and behind him, Sir Bronze Jon Royce. But Littlefinger's seat stood empty. Word came from the area of his accidental fall beyond the moon door. Daenerys greeted each with courtesy laced by fire. Drogon's presence on a shattered arch made courtiers speak plainly. She proposed a new realm of federated kingdoms, each owing her dragon's forged defense and fair grain tithe. But no forced worship, no central authority over local law. A queen to keep the peace, not hoard it. Tyrion added nuance. A small council, elected by great houses, to audit taxes, arbitrate disputes, and choose heirs should dragons perish. Debate wore through midday heat. Yara demanded islands retain old reaving rights. Sansa countered with safe harbor treaties forbidding salt wives. Trystane insisted on Dornish autonomy in all things save war. Gendry conceded rights to Storm's End's ports for northern timber. Piece by piece, compromise layered like hammered steel. Only one seat remained unspoken: the Iron Throne. When at last they broached it, Daenerys lifted a hammer of Valyrian steel, Blackfire, recovered from sail barrows of Aegon's line, and smashed the chair's highest blade. Sparks fountained. She pounded until twisted swords collapsed into twisted slag. Dust choked the pit. Ravens spiraled overhead screeching. When silence returned, the queen spoke. "Power is a burden best shared. The old throne is gone. In its place we'll cast 7 seats, 1 for each kingdom, around an empty fire pit. Whoever sits that center burns." The image chilled even hardened knights. Some bowed heads in approval. Others glanced about unsure. Jon closed eyes, exhale ragged. A dream of ashes parted. That evening, fires burned along the Street of Sisters while liberated small folk feasted on Reach grain wagons. Arya wove through revelers to meet her lieutenants by a fountain where carp spouted silver arcs into sky. She found only the High Knight. Others were gone, released with coin to choose their own fates. "The order dissolves," he said, removing his scarred face like a mask to reveal another unremarkable visage beneath. Temple answered, "Your raven. Your debt is accepted." Her stomach curled. "Whose face?" "Yours to choose." He pressed a slim wooden box into her palm. Inside lay a single bean-sized pill of shining onyx. "When the time comes, swallow. You'll sleep. We will harvest what remains. The many-faced god claims the wolf." Chill traced her fingers. "You ask I kill myself? The gift is always mercy." She shut the box. "Not yet. Soon?" He faded into crowd. In the Riverlands, Nymeria's pack stalked Euron Greyjoy's raiding column as it pillaged hamlets. One night, the pack struck, silent as frost. Greyjoy's men woke to screams of horses and crunch of bone. Euron fled into ranks of marsh reeds only to emerge before a shaggy girl in homespun, with steel in hand. He raised axe, but an arrow whispered past, sprouting from his throat. Mira Reed stepped from the shadows, bowstring still quivering. "Prince of Pike," she mused. "The bog always collects its debts." Her next arrow pinned a flailing seagull to a post. Euron sank among reeds, dead eyes reflecting stars. Time thickened like winter blood. Rebuilding consumed coin and sweat. Daenerys abolished debtor prisons. Taeko found gold hidden beneath Casterly rock enough to placate the Iron Bank. Samwell Tarly introduced ravens carrying copies of every new law to Citadel scribes. Loons in Lannisport clattered to clothe refugees. The wheel, it seemed, might truly bend. But rumors of White Walkers thawing again seeped from the haunted forest. Jon received a raven from Tormund Giantsbane. Strange lights beyond Frostfangs, corpses walking in pairs rather than hordes, as if scouting. Dragonglass mines near Dragonstone worked night and day yet produced too slowly. Jon prepared to ride again for the wall. He found Arya in the Godswood of Maegor's Holdfast, staring at the empty heart tree transplanted centuries past, bark pale as grieving bone. Longclaw hung across his back. "I want you beside me," he said. "If the dead rise again, your shadows could save thousands." Arya's smile was carved dusk. "I may join you. But first I sail for Bravos." He frowned. "Back to the temple. There are vows I made." She touched the wooden box at belt. "Debts." Jon's mouth hardened. "They take you? After all you've done for them?" "They don't hate. They balance scales, and I have taken much." Wind stirred her hair like raven wings. "Promise me something. If I don't return, look after Gendry. He hides his heart in iron, but it can break." Jon swallowed. "You come back. I forbade you from dying, remember?" She laughed once, but it caught like thread on thorn. "I'll try, big brother." They embraced beneath whispering leaves. The old gods watched in silence. Weeks later, the sea swan, rechristened Wolf's Mercy, cut through copper sunset beyond Dragonstone's headland. Arya stood alone at prow, Bravosi coin purse at hip, cloak fluttering. She felt the box inside jerkin press against skin. A constant heartbeat, not her own. Gulls wheeled overhead, cawing like ghosts of all she'd been. Behind, Gendry emerged from hatch holding 2 cups of ale. He leaned beside her, offered one. She sipped in quiet. The sea smelled of kelp and endings. "Storm's End can wait," he said. "Blacksmiths always come home to their forges. But I had to see you safe." "I'm never safe," she murmured. He chuckled. "I know. That's why I came." He reached into pocket, pulling a ring forged from steel mixed with dragonglass shards, its surface rippling with captured starlight. "If you return, will you wear this? Not a lord's token. A promise that someone waits." Her throat tightened. The box seemed to burn. Yet she took the ring, slipping it onto fingers scarred by many hilts. When she met his eyes, the many-faced god felt very far away. A bell tolled in the rigging, signal of clear seas. They sailed east into gathering dusk, wolves swimming in their wake. In Bravos, the house of black and white welcomed its prodigal with doors yawning like vast jaws. Candles guided her steps across familiar mosaic floor. Faces watched, some she had carried, some she had freed. The kindly man appeared from gloom, wearing visage of a pale girl with hair of sun-kissed wheat, maybe a reminder of someone Arya once was. "We have waited," he said. She opened the box, revealing pill. "I come to pay." The priest's eyes flickered to the ring on her hand. "You bring a face carved by love. Are you certain? Names have weight. Mine is heavy." The priest gestured to a silver basin of water so still, it reflected her like a polished blade. "Drink, then sleep where faces go." Arya reached, paused. In reflection, she saw not no one, but Arya Stark, sword maiden, sister, perhaps bride. A face others needed. She closed fingers around the pill until edges cut skin. "No," she whispered. "I will not die today." The silence shattered like stained glass. Candles hissed as unseen wind roared through hall. The kindly man did not move. "You defy the god." "I balance the scales another way." She drew needle. Its point trembled between them. "The dead march again in the far north. The world needs killers of death, not more corpses. Take my vow instead. I will bring you 1,000 faces of the damned. White walkers, whites sorcerers, who cheat mortality. Each one I slay balances this debt." The priest's hood stirred, eyes fathomless. Long moments passed, as though eons weighed outcomes. Finally he inclined his head. "Very well. bring death to those who would master it. But if you fail. She slid the ring from finger, placed it beside pill on basin's rim. If I fail, take this. The man it belongs to will follow, face unguarded. The priest's gaze softened, the closest to mercy she'd ever seen. The wolf remains yours. Go. Arya turned, cloak swirling like storm birth. Outside, dawn surged rose and gold along canals. She inhaled salt and possibility. Wolves awaited in Westeros, dragons too. The dead sharpened their frost. She strode toward docks where a black-hulled sloop bore prow carved as leaping wolf. Above the mast a banner snapped crimson in new light. The sigil of House Stark sewn alongside three small shapes, faceless masks of black, white, and gray. The many-faced wolf returned not as shadow, but as storm. As the sloop glided west, Braavos' skyline faded behind morning haze. Arya leaned into wind, fingers curling around Needle's wire-wrapped hilt. Somewhere beyond horizon Jon rallied dragonglass armies. Sansa penned charters. Daenerys forged councils. Gendry hammered dream metal. And far beyond them all, the Night's King stirred, brittle crown chiming beneath pallid moons. Arya bared her teeth to rising sun. She was debt and dagger both. A promise to the living that death itself could bleed. The sea answered with endless thunder beneath her keel, each wave counting heartbeats toward the final reckoning. The wolf's mercy cut across the sunset sea under a sky, the color of hammered bronze. Its single white sail bellied full by a wind so steady, it seemed some vast spirit blew from the east to hasten Arya home. Spray slapped the prow in glittering shards. She tasted salt on her lips, and kept her gaze fixed on the faint ghost line that would be the fingers when the day grew old. Behind her the black-hulled sloop left a wake straight as an arrow shaft, and in that white churn gray shapes surfaced, pacing the vessel, Nymeria's kin, tireless and sure. Gendry worked at the tiller a few steps aft, forearms corded, hair whipped back from a forged dark brow. The man fit a ship, the way a well-made sword fit its scabbard. Everything about him seemed forged for purpose. Each time he glanced forward, Arya felt the iron weight of the ring she'd left in Braavos. But she met his eyes openly. There was no time for half-truths between them, not with what waited across the waves. A gull wheeled overhead, screech startling in the hush of water and wind. Arya watched it ride the air until it vanished toward the west, wondering if it would reach the wall before she did. Pale fires had danced atop those ancient stones. If Tormund's ravens were true. Which blue lantern flickers that rose behind the battlements at moonset, lingered then vanished as dawn bruised the east. Scouts swore they saw trees walking in the haunted forest, and once a shadow like a man of ice drifting across the snow, leaving footprints that steamed as if the ground itself rebelled against the chill he carried. She gripped Needle's hilt where it jutted from her belt. A year ago, she would have smiled at the notion of ice demons at her door. Now she felt only a tight, cold readiness. The many-faced god had claimed his share of kings and queens. Now he would claim death itself. By midday, the fingers clawed at the horizon. 5 saw-toothed promontories gnawing the sea. Smoke from fisherfolk cookfires drifted thin and blue along the shoreline. Gendry guided the Wolf's Mercy into a narrow channel between 2 reefs, sails snapping as he trimmed them taut. "Winds freshening from the southwest," he called over the boom. "We can reach White Harbor before dawn, if it holds." Arya braced one boot on the rail, hair whipping like a black flag. "Good. Jon rides for the wall come morning. We ride with him." "And after?" Gendry asked quietly. "After we meet the dead in the snow and show them how a wolf howls." She tilted her head. "Why? You thinking of forging armor for them?" "Nimn." He shook a rueful smile. "Not hardly. I was thinking of the promise you left me." A pang cut through her like thin steel. "That promise stands," she said. "If there's a world left to wear it in." Gendry's calloused fingers brushed her wrist. "There will be. Or I'll hammer one out of raw iron." She let herself lean into his warmth for a breath, then straightened and scanned the shore again. Every gull cry felt like a ticking clock. White Harbor's walls loomed pale in moonlight when they arrived, the Wolf's Mercy sliding past the beacon tower just as the tide turned. Piers bristled with warships, Manderley carvels and Nors from Bear Island, battered cogs flying Karstark sunbursts. Torches bobbed along the quays as dockhands marshaled crates of dragonglass arrowheads bundled in straw. Between crates crouched lanterns of obsidian, cold torches that would burn blue fire when their wicks were kissed by flint. Samwell Tarly's handiwork, if Arya guessed. As soon as their gangplank thumped the boards, a herald in green and white hurried forward. Lady Arya Stark. Lord Snow has ridden for Winterfell, but he left orders. Fresh mounts, full kits, and passage through the neck by barge at first light. Good. She vaulted to the plank. Gendry landed behind her, boots clanging. We need 2 of Manderley's fastest galleys as well. The wolves swim, but I want hulls under them when they reach the shivering sea. The herald blanched. Wolves? Swim? But bowed gamely and strode off barking orders. By dawn they were a column racing across the King's Road. Arya and Gendry riding abreast of 6 faceless lieutenants in plain leathers, 30 wolf banners flapping behind them. Nymeria's beasts loped in silence along the ditch, eyes green sparks in the half-light. Mist curled out of the barrows on either side, but the wolves peeled them back with their breath, forging a tunnel of frost-tinged air. Arya felt something stirring in that cold emptiness, a dread as old as the first men, coiled now to strike. They reached Winterfell at sundown 3 days later. Smoke from the mews rose straight despite the wind. A storm was coming. Jon stood atop the battlements in black mail and snowfox cloak, Longclaw at his hip, ghost white direwolf at his side. When Arya dismounted beneath the gatehouse, Ghost bounded down the steps to greet Nymeria. The giant she-wolf stiffened, then dipped her gray head. Ghost circled once, tail swishing like a pale banner. Wolves understood the terms of alliance better than men ever would. Inside the great hall fires roared in every hearth, but the faces around the trestle tables looked carved of hoarfrost. Brienne of Tarth stood with a splinted arm, Stark direwolf stitched beside a Tarth sunburst on her surcoat. Davos Seaworth fingered a letter sealed in black wax, his mouth pressed thin as she approached. Tyrion Lannister hunched over a scroll, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. Sansa sat the high seat with Bran beside her. The weirwood white ravens of the three-eyed Stark perched silent on his shoulders. "We have news," Davos began. He passed the black-sealed letter to Jon, then nodded at Arya. "Came on a raven from Eastwatch an hour past." Jon slit the wax with a thumb and read. The silence in the hall felt like held breath. At last he looked up, face pale as birch bark. "The Night's King rides again." A murmured prayer fluttered through the rafters. Bran's blind eyes drifted shut, and when they opened, they were moon-pale. He was shattered at the battle for Dawn, but not destroyed, the boy said in a voice that did not belong to any child. Ice remembers its shape. A splinter of his will hid beneath the fist of the first men, waiting. Now the cold gathers to that shard. "How many?" Sansa asked. "Fewer than before," Bran answered. "Yet stronger. He comes not with a storm of wights, but with a handful of knights wrought of blue glass and silence. Each can raise the dead to fight in his stead, and they move faster than flame." Negersa. Tyrion rubbed his jaw. "A strike force, then. Surgical." He flicked a glance at Arya. "Ironic." Jon met Arya's gaze. "If what Sam discovered is true, dragonglass still kills them, but only if the point strikes the heart crystal at their core. Obsidian arrows may not be enough." Arya unbuckled needle and laid it on the table. "Then we strike the heart ourselves." She leaned close to the blade. "There are 5 lieutenants. The Night's King makes 6. We send 6 faces to cut 6 hearts." "Faceless men," Brienne breathed. Arya nodded. "I trained a lifetime for shadows. The dead don't need light." A hush followed. A hush thick with the taste of risk. Sansa broke it. "And Jon?" "I march the living," Jon said. "We hold the wall with dragonglass and fire, keep the dead from gathering numbers. If we fall, the North falls. If we stand." Tyrion finished for him. "You buy time for Arya's daggers." Bran lifted a hand. "He will foresee open assaults. He remembers his last defeat." Then we won't attack," Arya said. "We'll walk." She unrolled a map and pointed to a horseshoe valley south of the shivering sea. The lonely barrow. Old tunnels from the first men run beneath. A spark at one end lights smoke at the other. We go in through stone, no wight will think to search. And if he senses you? Davos asked. Then we change our faces again. Jon rested a hand on hers. Take Gendry, he said. I need you to come back. She squeezed his fingers. Gendry will forge the blade that ends him. She turned to the smith. You still remember Brightfire's steel? I remember. Gendry's voice thrummed like hammer on anvil. Folded with dragonglass dust, quenched in weirwood sap. We have a forge at Eastwatch, hotter than any hearth. Then we leave at dawn. Snow fell in curtains as they rode north. By the time the party reached Queenscrown, the flakes were wide as raven feathers, and the pines lining the King's Road sagged under their weight. Arya rode at the vanguard, wolves pacing silent flanks. Behind came Gendry and 6 faceless shadows, each leading a packhorse laden with sealed coffers. Inside lay vials of basilisk venom, coils of braided Valyrian wire, and fingernail-thin blades of Brightfire steel. No longer than a child's hand, but keen enough to shave breath. As they crested the ridge above Queenscrown, lightning flickered violets in the northern sky, unearthly, silent. Bran's ravens called it corpse light, a sign the night's king stirred. Arya felt it like frost on bone. She urged her mare faster. At Eastwatch, the black gate yawned in welcome. Torches hissed, scattering embers that the wind snatched and flung seaward. Tormund Giantsbane stood on the parapet, red beard glazed with ice, shouting orders at a line of wildling archers, stringing dragonglass-tipped longbows. About bloody time, he barked as Arya dismounted. The big bastards walking our way with half a forest of corpses. How far? 2 days' march. Tormund spat icicles. And they got giants this time. Not too many, but enough. Arya glanced at Gendry. We need your forge. The smith grinned, already stripping off gloves. I'll need pig iron charcoal and your brightest secrets. She handed him a packet of milky powder. Shave dragonglass fine as flour, mix it into the fold. When it cools, the blade will sing to ice like a flame. Tormund eyed the powder suspiciously. And what do the rest of us do while the lad plays with fire? Bleed, Arya said. Tormund laughed like an avalanche. I like you, wolf girl. They worked through night, and dawn, and night again. The old Eastwatch forge rang, sides glowing orange even in the driving snow. Gendry hammered billets until steam sheeted off his bare arms. He folded the steel thrice 9 times, sprinkling the dragonglass dust between layers, each spark a shard of midnight. At last he quenched the blade in a trough filled with melted weirwood shavings and seawater. The hiss roared like a dragon's shriek. Steam billowed. The smell of resin and salt burned the throat. When he drew the sword forth, it was blacker than onyx, veined with silver lightning. A thin line of frost melted away wherever the edge passed. Gendry set it on an anvil before Arya, sweat freezing in his beard. It doesn't have a name. It will. She touched the steel. It hummed under her finger, alive with some fierce will. Heart thief. The faceless lieutenants hefted the blade, then split for their tasks. One scaled the outer curtain to douse lanterns. Another disappeared into the cistern tunnels beneath the keep. The others vanished east toward the cliff path leading to the shore caves. Before sunrise, they slipped beyond the wall through an ice-sheathed sally port, silent as breath on glass. Arya led Gendry behind her, wolves fanning wider. They moved through snowfields lit by sickle moon. In places the drifts were crusted with brittle rime. Elsewhere they sank to thighs and had to wade, but the wolves found the shallowest path every time. Midday they reached the lonely barrow, an ancient hill of stone grown over with ichor-black lichens. A fissure yawned near its base, wide enough for a crouching man. Arya slid first, dropping into a passage that stank of ancient dust and cold water. The others followed, torches hooded to nubs. The wolves stayed outside. A single low howl echoed off the ridge, then silence. They crept on hands and knees, through veins of darkness, until the tunnel opened into a vault, where black roots dangled like dead men's hair. There, the faceless split, each taking one of 6 side shafts that wound upward toward the surface, hunting the enemy's hearts. Arya and Gendry ascended the central shaft. The passage narrowed until they could only inch, elbows scraping stone. Above, a faint glow pulsed, a light cold and steady, unlike any fire. They emerged behind a rockfall, on a snowy ledge overlooking a glade frozen in unnatural stillness. At its center stood the Night's King. He was taller than she recalled from tales, blue armor faceted like glacier glass, crown of icicles serrated to razors. In one hand he held a spear carved from pale crystal. Around him stood 5 lieutenants in mirrored armor, their eyes twin lanterns of cerulean flame. By their feet sprawled carcasses, a mammoth harpoon through the heart, an elk still steaming. The lieutenants placed hands on the corpses. Frost spider-webbed over flesh. Slowly the animals stirred, bones cracking, eyes igniting azure. Arya felt gooseflesh rise. Gendry's breath stuttered in the hush. She unwrapped Hearthief. The black blade drank what little light drifted through the clouded sky. A sudden crack, like a tree splitting, rang to their right. One of her lieutenants had sprung. Arya glimpsed a flicker of gray cloak between pines, then a sapphire spearhead arced, impaling the assassin through chest. The body convulsed, frozen mid-breath. The Night's King turned slow, as winter sunsets. His gaze swept the snows, stopped on Arya's ledge. She felt his stare pierce stone like cold fire. No time for stealth. She vaulted the rockfall, landing knee-deep in snow. Hearthief flashed, severing the mammoth's tendon as it lurched to block her. The beast toppled, shrieking in a voice of breaking glaciers. Gendry followed, swinging a dragonglass axe into a white elk's skull. Black shards exploded, azure light guttered out. "Go," he shouted. "I hold them." She sprinted, low and fast, weaving between ice knights, raising their blades. One stabbed. She rolled, came up slicing behind the knee. Frost burst, but no blood. Another swung overhead. She ducked, flicked Hearthief across shin and through ankle. The knight fell, crystal shards skittering. She finished it with a thrust through the chest, shattering the heart gem. The entire body dissolved to sleet in the wind. One. The Night's King glided forward. Snow did not cling to him. It recoiled. He leveled his spear. An instant before he loosed, Nymeria barreled from the forest, fangs driving into the haft. Ice splintered, but cold ripped through her. She yelped, fell away smoking frost from her jaws. Fury detonated in Arya's chest. She lunged, blade first. The Night's King parried with the broken spear half, force like a battering ram. The shock numbed her arm. She spun, used his momentum to slide past, carving a shallow groove along his side. Frost bled from the cut, sizzling where it touched the black steel. He backhanded. She leaped the sweep, landed behind him. Gendry's roar filled the glade. He hurled his axe, spinning silver through the snow. The Night's King raised a palm. The axe froze mid-air, fell brittle, shattered. But the distraction let Arya dart in. She dove. Hearthief held reverse, and drove the blade up beneath the rib flanges of the ice armor, into the heart crystal. The world exploded in blue shrapnel, screamed like wind through graves. Light blasted outward, blinding, and she was thrown back into drifting powder. Silence settled. When spots cleared from Arya's sight, she saw the Night's King collapsing into flakes, crown first, scattering like seeds of frost on wind. The remaining lieutenants froze where they stood, ice fracturing across their forms. Then they too dissolved, leaving only snow. In the hush, Arya heard nothing. Not wind, not bird. Then a soft keening. Nymeria struggled to stand, shoulder rimed with ice. Arya ran to her, pressed her brow to the she-wolf's. Warmth returned slowly as frost melted. Gendry limped over, bleeding from a cut at his forehead. "It's done," he whispered, disbelief wrought. Arya looked at the melting crown fragments, then at Hearthief. The blade now shimmered with hair-fine cracks, glowing ember red. It had drunk too much cold. She knelt, laid it in snow. The steel sighed, then split into glittering dust that the wind whisked away. "Price paid," she murmured. When they returned to Eastwatch, the night sky blazed with green and purple curtains, aurora like giant silk banners dancing out. The wildlings howled. Jon embraced Arya at the gate, face streaked with soot from a pyre of fallen brothers. "We felt it," he said, like winter exhaling. She only nodded, exhaustion pulling her bones. Yet her eyes sought Gendry. He stood by the forge, holding a circlet of twisted Brightfire scrap. When she approached, he pressed it into her palm. "For the one who steals Death's face," he said. She slipped it into her pouch beside the empty wooden box. "Debt repaid," she told him. Later that night she climbed the wall alone. Stars spilled like shattered diamonds overhead. She thought of the kindly man, of faces hanging forever in the quiet halls, of her own that might one day join them. She touched the ring on her finger, the real one, forged of Brightfire and dragonglass, retrieved from Bravos by unknown hands. "No," she whispered to the sky, to the stranger, to anyone listening. "Not today. Not until the last story is told." Then, below, wolves sang in chorus. Ghost Nymeria, and 100 wild throats answering, bound not by chains of stone or crown, but by blood and night. Their voices carried across the snows, across the ruins of fear, across a world remade by shadows and flame. Arya Stark closed her eyes and listened, and for the first time since she had knelt before the many-faced god she felt the weight of her own heart, its pulse loud, stubborn, gloriously alive. The wall wept as the first thaw of a newly certain spring trickled through cracks centuries old, the meltwater carrying flecks of ancient ice southward, as though determined to tell the world that winter had at last drawn its true last breath. Arya stood upon the walkway where she had listened to the wolf's chorus, and watched thin trillions of droplets sparkle in dawn's low slant. Each one, she thought, might be the ghost of a man or woman fallen in these snows. Wildling, ranger, kneeler, king, finally free to run green valleys again. She wanted to believe in that mercy. But ghosts seldom found rest, and even the greatest victory left wounds beneath the frost. Behind her, the Night's Watch worked with a zeal not seen since Aegon the Conqueror first visited the wall, driving new iron bolts, carving channels for melt to flow harmlessly away rather than crack the huge slabs. Maester Samwell kept careful ledgers of stone and timber allocations, quoting archmaesters to anyone who asked why exact measurements mattered after magic and murder had almost broken the world. Rattleshirt's son, 10-year-old Bruni, no bones on him now, ran errands with a broad grin and wider curiosity. Chivied by old Nan's great-granddaughter, come with a heart of stories to spin into new songs. The watch was alive with a purpose other than endurance. It felt almost like hope. Yet further south anguish followed the path of shattered ice. Ravens flew into King's Landing every dawn, parchment-bellied by cruel winds, each bearing lists of the dead discovered when white torpor melted from their stiff limbs. Farmers along the Gift found neighbors they had buried thrice, finally still, and then themselves felt free to sob, sometimes laugh, at the strange quiet. And from the fingers came word that those who once whispered prayers to the drowned god now whispered proper apologies to the living. Euron Greyjoys, remaining longships, rode anchor with their masts cut, their crews too terrified of wolves and dragonfire to raise black sails again. Arya absorbed these tidings like cold water on steel, letting nothing stain the edge she would still need. She sparred every dawn inside a dusty storage hall repurposed as training yard, facing Gendry and any other fool brave enough. The last of her faceless lieutenants, silent Jaka, once a Volantine cobbler, moved through forms beside her, never speaking, never deigning to strike. A shadow to remind Arya what she had been, and might become again, should the realm forget what the wolf had proven. She felt the eyes of every ranger and wildling drawn to the pale Brightfire circlet, adorning her brow. They called it the Wolf Crown, though she had claimed no kingdom, only the right to watch. Jon allowed her that. He had other burdens. Letters piled upon his desk like fresh snow piling on old. He answered each in tight slanted hand, sealing them with a plain direwolf, rather than the fledgling sigil of a united realm that Daenerys' council insisted upon. The queen herself had returned to Dragonstone to brood over shattered blades from the Iron Throne, instructing masons on her circle of 7 seats and promising Jon a place among them. He promised nothing except to keep the North breathing. Some nights, Arya watched him pace the corridor outside Bran's chamber, listening to the three-eyed Stark speak in riddles of dawning ages and broken chains. Other nights she heard him wake from dreams of wildfire and whisper the name Valyria as though it were a grief. When at last the thaw spread south of the last river, Jon called council in Winterfell's great hall. Lords and freefolk chiefs and maesters gathered beneath banners freshly mended. Direwolf, Kraken, Dragon, Sunbursts, Tridents, the green shoot of House Tyrell's rebirth. Davos set casks of honey meat on the trestles. Tyrion passed them, filling cups with courtesy that fooled none. Sansa presided, face a portrait of composed winter roses, though Arya saw her thumb rub the inside of her left wrist whenever Petyr Baelish's name drifted through conversations. Brienne stood at her right shoulder, healed arm now steady when it rested on the pommel of Oathkeeper. Jon rose. We won a war of nights and snows by standing together. Now we decide what standing together means when the enemy is hunger, cold, and coin. He gestured to Samwell, who unrolled maps marked with red-inked symbols. These glens along the shivering sea lost entire harvests. The Reach can spare grain. Lord Gendry has built barges to deliver it. In turn, the North will send lumber for new hulls. Queen Daenerys has pledged unsullied engineers to help rebuild Torrhen's Square and Moat Caelan's Causeway. No oaths of fealty demands, only sense. Lord Wyman Manderley, broad and brilliant in his turquoise robes, peered over crimson cheeks. Sense is good coin, but many small folk whisper of a new tax on grain to pay the Iron Bank's loans. Tyrion cleared his throat. The bank accepted Queen Daenerys' plan. Payment will come from Casterly mines once deeper veins open under Harrenhal's new charter. No farmer shall feed Braavos coffers before feeding Westerosi mouths. The slightest triumphant tilt to his chin suggested he had negotiated that himself. A murmur of approval followed, but Lord Corbray, on unexpected leave from the Vale, while young Robin Arryn practiced statesmanship under Sansa's tutors, leaned forward. Reform is a carriage with broken wheels if we forget old blood. Many houses still harbor grudges. Who ensures no fresh rebellion blooms when harvests return? Arya felt eyes shift toward her, and those same eyes caught Gendry's blacksmith hands folded like steel bars across his chest. Ghost padded through the hall, silent as fallout snow, and sat by Jon's feet, white gaze glimmering. Jon spoke again. Justice for treasons of the past has been meted. His voice cracked slightly on the word justice. He still carried Ned Stark's head on every cold wind. Now justice must serve the living. But if any lord breaks peace, they will answer to direwolves and dragons both. Nyande. You forget shadows, Arya said, stepping beside him. Every lord who once knew her as a waif from storybooks stiffened. She could taste their unease. 5 faceless shadows returned with me from the land of the dead. The other halls of our order watch as well. If treachery takes root, its perpetrators will vanish so cleanly songs won't even recall their names. That is my promise. Corbray paled. Even Manderley's joviality dimmed a shade. Sansa watched her sister with measured calm, but Arya could read the silent admonition. Do not overplay fear. Yet fear, Arya judged, was easier mended than civil war. She offered a half-smile, nothing more. The council adjourned with nervous goodwill. Arya slipped out to the godswood, leaving conversation to courtiers. Snowdrops already poked pale petals through the sodden mold where dead leaves rotted into soil. She knelt before the heart tree, pressing palm to scarlet bark. She expected no answer. The old god said little. The silence brought clarity. She had become a blade too honed for restful scabbards. Even in victory she edged her words in threat. That path led to stone where no spring reached. She bowed her head, letting soft sap scent fill lungs until heartbeat slowed. Somewhere distant, a harp plucked a gentle cadence. Podrick, she guessed, coaxing hope from strings. A twig snapped. She turned to find Bran wheeled along the moss, eyes pale as sunlit ice. "You frighten them," he observed, voice like falling petals. "They need a reminder. They need a choice." He extended one hand. "Come with me." She grasped his slender wrist, and vision tumbled, a cascade of green sight rushing through her mind. She stood on a hill above the Ashford meadows where banners of every color fluttered beneath a summer sun. She saw children climbing the gilded rubble of what had once been the Iron Throne, clapping as they toppled the last twisted fang into a pit of molten bronze. She saw a library wall in Old Town where a hooded girl taught scribes to etch secret scripts into metal slats, resistant to fire and time. She saw a forge in Storm's End glowing white, while Gendry hammered Brightfire again, each blow ringing across a conclave of smiths. Dothraki, Kiskari, Kahoric, Summer Islander, men and women forging together a common steel. And she saw her own face on coins minted in Bravos, beneath a crescent moon. But they were not coins of fear. Beggars used them for bread, and the many-faced god accepted the circulation with silent approval. The flow slowed. Bran's hand slipped free. "Paths shift," he whispered. "You're not bound to shadow or throne. You can choose to guide, not to silence." Arya blinked tears she had not noticed. "I know death better than I know life." "Know both." He wheeled back, leaving her beneath the weirwood with a pulse hammering like spring rain inside her ribs. That evening, she found Jaka sharpening needles of steel outside the old smithy. He looked up without expression. "The crone of Bravos sent message by River Gull. She says the temple would accept your ledger of slain dead in full atonement. You need not die a face." "What price?" Arya asked. "That your knives open doors for mankind, not for vengeance." A rare flicker of warmth crossed his eyes. "They offer you the title, Nameless Shepherd." She laughed once, Stry, surprised. "A shepherd who carries wolves. Wolves need shepherding most." She considered torch glow flickering in the steel. "Tell the crone I accept. But tell her the name Arya Stark stays with me. A shepherd must let the flock know who holds the crook." Jaka inclined his head, that fraction of a nod only faceless trainers gave. Somewhere inside the calm, she felt a door, locked for years, now open. Daenerys Targaryen returned to King's Landing late in the flood moon with 3 caravels of summer oranges and a score of Dornish masons. She walked the ruins of the dragon pit and chose a vantage high on broken arches. The city sprawled beneath, alive with scaffolds, paint-washed facades, new mead halls. Queen's Gate wore a fresh coat of white lime. Where Wildfire once slept now stood granaries, each with a carved direwolf and dragon entwined, stone tails knitting into wheat sheaves. She tasted salt on sudden tears, the dream of 1,000 unburnt histories. Tyrion joined her, carrying a draft parchment thicker than a maester's pillow. "The first charter of the 7 seats," he announced. "All houses have sent modifications. Half contradict the other half." She took the scroll, but her gaze lingered on the white sword tower where Ser Brienne drilled a new order. Knights of the Song, they called them, pledged to protect stories and lives, sworn equally to queen and realm. Women lined the yard with men, armor bright. Cersei would have sneered. Dany felt hope stir. "What of Arya?" she asked. "Your nameless shepherd escorted the Manderley grain fleet south, then disappeared beyond the summer sea." Tyrion smiled. "Spies claim she boarded a Mirish dreamship bound for Volantis. Word is she's to negotiate release of the Unsullied families still indentured." Dany exhaled. "A wolf in the slave cities. They'll learn manners quickly." A shadow swept the plaza. Drogon perched atop the hill of Rhaenys, wings folding like caught night. Children cheered. No one cowered anymore. Fire, wielded for life, no longer terrified. Beyond the red mountains, the lemon groves of Dorne burst into bloom. A ship with a carved wolf prow docked at Sunspear. Its captain, a lean girl with a scar shaped like an hourglass down her cheek, asked for audience with Prince Trystane. She brought gifts. Braavosi contracts nullifying old Lannister debts, and a pouch bearing coins minted with a crescent moon. The coins bore no king's face, only a many-armed figure cradling a sleeping wolf. The prince kissed the captain's glove in thanks, and sent her away with barrels of lime and salt pork to ease the north's salted roads. When she sailed, small folk along the quay tossed garlands onto the water, saying a new moon had risen at midday. Word spread by camel train to Old Town, where Archmaester Ebros tapped his quill on a ledger and muttered, "Economists will need a new sigil for fear before ordering apprentices to collect samples of the wolf coins and test their silver grade." In the process, they discovered Bravosi artisans had mixed stannum and living glass, creating a currency that never tarnished. Debates erupted. Was perpetual shine good or ill? Scholars argued entire nights before concluding that unblemished things reminded men to keep their hands clean. That decision, copied to scroll, traveled north on the wind. The Shireen, flagship of Davos Seaworth's renewed royal fleet, set sail for Pentos under banners of the 7 seats intertwined. Its hold carried maesters, scribes, and 3 crank-driven presses built by Qyburn's less sinister apprentices to replicate scrolls at speed. Arya watched the vessel depart from the dock at Driftmark, fingers brushing the tide-smoothed planks. She wore breeches dyed indigo and a jerkin embroidered with a wolf over a faceless mask. At her hip hung a dagger forged from the last bright fire scraps, its edge showing the faint shimmer of dawn in every angle. Gendry stepped beside her. "Maiden voyage," he said. "May it bring home more books than bones." He smiled, brushing wind-blown hair back, and produced the wolf crown she had set aside. "Keep it. People will need symbols when doubts return. It's heavy. Then share the weight." He slipped it over her brow. "A crown you can take off is better than one melted to your flesh." She kissed him, because there were no more battles to forbid tenderness. The kiss tasted of sea and soft iron, and ended too soon as sails snapped, and the Shireen moved like a white whisper toward open water. When the northern spring became true summer, Jon rode for King's Landing with a retinue of 60. Rangers, lords, wildlings, maids who wished to see sunflowers instead of snow. Ghost padded ahead, lean but content. At the Trident fords, farmers brought baskets of strawberries, dipped in honey, and cheered him as king who chose no crown. He thanked them, and spoke of grain reserves and free roads. He spoke of Sansa's charter, guaranteeing fair trials across all 7 kingdoms. And he announced Bran's vision of a greenway, a swath of forest protected from axe or fire from the wall to the Dornish marches, a living spine to remind every child that old gods and new find solace in trees. In King's Landing he knelt before no throne, but Daenerys stepped off the stone dais to stand beside him while Tyrion proclaimed the charter of the 7 seats ratified. Each seat would move every 7 years to a new capital among its people. First meeting to be held in White Harbor, second in Sunspear, third perhaps in a rebuilt Nysar, under Rhoynar arches. Lords balked at the travel, until Arya, home from Volantis, recounted how many faces the many-faced god wore. "If he can cross oceans," she said, "so can parchment-laden lords." They signed. That evening fires blazed on the hill where the dragon pit had crumbled. Bards sang of a world reborn. Wine from arbor casks poured. Brienne's knights patrolled but found no blades drawn except for dancing. Children dared each other to touch Drogon's scales, where he snoozed like a black mountain near the ruins. He allowed it, one copper eye cracked open in mild amusement. Under a canopy of woven myrtle branches, Tyrion drank with Sansa, and discussed the possibility of re-establishing a university in the shattered sept of Baelor's crypt. "Books among bones," he quipped. She countered, "Wisdom from ashes," and they drafted a charter on the spot, laughing as ink blotched their cuffs. Meanwhile, Arya slipped past the merriment to stand at the riverbank where wildfire's green shimmer once stained the water. Now lanterns of colored paper floated, one for every soul lost to the undead. Tormund's Boy Scout, the cobbler lieutenant, Hodor's gentle hands, even the mountain's monstrous form, because, as Arya said, "Let the stranger judge, not me." She released a lantern shaped like a faceless mask and watched it drift north. It caught a breeze, skipping like a living star. Gendry found her. He carried 2 mugs of small beer and said nothing because silence was kinder than prompting her to speak names she still carried. They drank. When the last lantern disappeared round a bend, he offered his hand. She took it. They walked up the bank into firelight, and for once she did not scan every shadow for daggers. She merely listened to music. Years later, a boy whose parents named him Mace after a long-dead lord found a faded coin near the docks of Old Town. One side showed a many-armed figure, the other a wolf cradled by a crescent. Curious, he took it to the scriptorium where hooded scholars recorded every minted piece. The eldest scholar squinted through glass lenses, then broke into a slow smile. Ah, the moon wolf. Mint of the nameless shepherd. Nam. The boy, who dreamed of voyages, asked what trade such a coin could buy. Stories, said the scholar, and placed the coin in the boy's palm. More precious than gold. Keep it. When you are ready, show it in Bravos beneath the Titan's gaze, and a door will open. The boy clutched the coin, eyes shining. He looked out to see where a fleet of bright-painted ships gathered sails to voyage east, and a bronze-prowed sloop called the Mercy of Wolves waited among them, its banner showing masks entwined with a direwolf, and beneath it a blacksmith kissed a woman of shadows upon the rigging. The future, like the sea, breathed salt and promise.